It was the writer Bobby Brown that said, "How I feel about myself is more important than how I look. Feeling confident, being comfortable in your skin, that's what really makes you beautiful." My guest, Brianna Medvecki, is someone who has had to learn to overcome her own self-doubts. As an elite level gymnast who spent years crafting her skill, to all of a sudden lose that due to injury was devastating. Along comes the sport of diving, and Brianna has moved forward with grace and confidence. Get ready to walk on the board and dive into this motivating episode with Brianna Medvecki. Welcome to Journey with Jake. This is a podcast about adventure and how through our adventures we can overcome the challenges of life that come our way. While I expect you will learn some things about different adventures, this show will entertain you. Each episode will feature a different guest or guests as they share experiences and stories from the different adventures they have been on. Not only will you be entertained, but you will also hear the failures and trials each guest faces and what they have done or are doing to overcome the hardships that come their way. My goal is to take each of us on a journey through the experiences of my guests with the hope that you'll be entertained and inspired to overcome your day-to-day challenges. After all, it's not all about the destination as it is about the journey. Bushman, and I'm the host of Journey with Jake. Today is episode 115, and I'm thrilled to have Brianna Medvecki on the show with me. Before we chat with Brianna, remember to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcast. I would also love it if you could leave me a rating and review. That allows others to find Journey with Jake and perhaps get some motivation and inspiration from what they hear. I also want to remind everybody that Journey with Jake episodes are now on YouTube. Just search Journey with Jake podcast on YouTube to check it out. Journey with Jake is all about adventures and how through our adventures we can overcome challenges. Brianna Medvecki just recently completed her college career at Cal Poly University, where she participated on the dive team. Her path to diving was not a lifelong dream, but it is amazing how sometimes other factors in life come about which can change our trajectory, and the things we learn from these experiences are part of the journey and who we are. If you like this episode, you will also enjoy episode 77, about Elsa Hassett's cheerleading journey from setbacks to championships. Let's get to my conversation with former collegiate diver, Brianna Medvecki. All right. Well, I'm excited today. I have Brianna Medvecki on the show with me today. Brianna, welcome to Journey with Jake. Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. I'm talking to someone who does flips and things off a diving board, which is cool. I haven't had that. I've had a couple gymnasts on. I've had a cheerleader on. They do all kinds of flips and cool things, but I've never had anyone who actually jumps off a high dive or off a platform for this. So I'm pretty excited to talk to you about that. Before we jump into all of that, tell me a little bit about who you are, just kind of some of your background, where you're from, and then we'll kind of get into your whole diving story.
Yeah, so I started off in gymnastics, grew up in the Southern California area in Tarzana. So I started off at 2.5 years old in gymnastics. The daycare that I went to, they would tell my mom that I just had too much energy, so she had to find something that could, help me get out some of my zoomies. So yeah, I started at 2.5 years old and continued in gymnastics up until 16. I ended up tearing my ACL and wasn't able to. I recovered, but my coaches and my parents made me quit. They knew my body couldn't handle it. I wanted to keep going. So my whole goal was always to make a college team. So after having to quit gymnastics, I went into acro and tumbling. I tried pole vaulting and diving. And then the diving eventually stuck. And I kind of went from Division II at Azusa Pacific University to community college during COVID because I ended up transferring out and ended up at Cal Poly, which is a Division I program. So kind of, went the long way about it, but I love athletics in general. So I'm very grateful for the career I was able to have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like the fact that you had a goal in mind that, hey, I want to compete at the college level. It wasn't what you thought it was going to be. I think in your mind it was going to be gymnastics. That's what you're going to compete in the college level. It didn't happen. You found another way to make it happen through diving. We'll get into that. as far as background goes, you said from Southern California. Siblings, anything like that you have? You have any brothers or sisters?
Yeah, so I have one younger brother. He's 17 years old. Love him so much. He is going through his awkward stage, so it's like I'll reach out and be like, "How was your day?" And then I get a good and nothing else. But yeah, love my brother. He's not as much into athletics, but he is really talented in the arts, and so he posts all these like cool art videos and TikToks and stuff that I always watch on the side. But yeah, so I have one younger brother. Grew up in Tarzana for 6 years. Then we ended up in Alameda, which is near Oakland, so kind of like Bay Area. Was there for 4, and then moved to Roseville, which is near Sacramento, up north. Spent 8 years over there. Azusa, which was my first school, went and lived again down in Southern California near Pasadena for a year. COVID hit, moved back home to Roseville. My mom runs an in-home daycare. I thought there was an alarm going off. My mom runs an in-home daycare, and I was doing engineering, so that was very difficult. I ended up moving into my boyfriend's house. He lived on the Central Coast in Soledad, so lived there for 2 years during COVID, which is where I was at the community college, and then transferred to Cal Poly, so now I'm living in San Luis Obispo.
You've been all over California. You're just like California, that's your spot, I guess, but all over the place.
I love San Luis Obispo, so I only transferred to Cal Poly in August of 2022, and I was not ready to leave, so I'm graduating on Saturday, actually, but I'm just not ready to leave, so I found a full-time job in San Luis Obispo. My major, I switched from engineering to city and regional planning, so I'm going to do transportation planning for Caltrans in San Luis Obispo, and I'm really excited about that.
Wow. Okay. So you went from engineering to city plan. What is it? City planning?
Yeah, city and regional planning. I actually did 3 full years of engineering. I went from systems to civil. So again, 3 full years of engineering practically. When I came to Cal Poly, when I was transferring, I realized, because I've had a lot of internships. I've had like 5 internships at this point. And during a year-long internship with a city civil engineer, I got to work alongside some of the planners, and I realized that I really liked what the planners were doing. And again, mid-COVID, I figured, why not? This is the only time I'm going to have to switch and do something that I'm really passionate about. So I ended up in city and regional planning, and you can ask my teammates, I never shut up about it. So I really love it.
That's your thing. Very good.
Yeah.
Does Cal Poly have a good program for that?
Yeah, they actually have one of the top programs in the nation. It's a very niche subject.
Yeah.
And so some schools have programs that are accredited, and some schools don't have programs that are accredited. So yeah, it's an accredited program, one of the best in the nation. People actually heard that, some schools prefer hiring firms prefer Cal Poly over like a Berkeley or UCLA because we're very hands-on, and graduating you feel very prepared. But that kind of plays into my athletic story too. So because I switched my major after my 3rd year, going into my 4th year, I was practically starting a completely new major. And so last year, or again, August of 2022, coming to Cal Poly, I was not eligible to compete because as in NCAA athletics, as a 4th year, you need 60% of your units towards your major completed. And because I was starting a new major, I didn't hit that mark. So I was not eligible to compete all of last year.
Wow. Okay.
But
so was it like you redshirted kind of thing? Is it similar, but it's just academically you couldn't do it?
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting situation because I competed my freshman year, and then COVID hit. So competed my freshman year, did not compete my 2nd year, did not compete my 3rd year, transferred to Cal Poly as a 4th year, was not eligible, and then competed this year as a 5th year. So I didn't really have to worry about the whole, like, is it a red shirt? Is it a gray shirt? Because I had so many years of quote unquote eligibility that it was just at this point, I think technically I could take a 6th year of athletics, but after that I time out. So there's like an internal clock that once you graduate high school, you have X amount of years to complete your 4 years of eligibility. So I would time out anyway.
So you're a older senior, basically.
Yeah, so I'm 22.
Oh, you're not older.
I'm
You're still young.
Yeah, I'm young for my grade, but it did take me 5 years to complete my bachelor's because I switched my major so
Sure.
late in the year.
Well, and then you throw COVID in the mix, and there's just all kinds of things happening.
Yeah.
So congratulations on graduating this week. By the time this comes out, you'll be a graduate already, and probably just hitting the world and all that good stuff. So congratulations, that's awesome. Very good.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not ready to kind of end athletics cold turkey. So like I said, I'm staying in San Luis Obispo, but I've already talked to my coach. I'm like, please bring me on as a volunteer assistant coach or something. I still want to be around the pool deck. So I kind of still plan on maybe going to like Saturday practices and definitely helping out at the meets, either filming. Yeah, you may have seen my Instagram. Like I do enjoy making videos and editing, so I might kind of help them out with their social media and see if I can bring in some more eyes to the program, either for funding purposes or maybe getting sponsorships to help them out with that. But yeah, I still plan on being around the team after graduating.
Very good. I like that. It's a good way to do it. Yeah, kind of stay involved as much as you can. You're alumni now, so why not stay involved as much as you can? So let's kind of talk about that journey to get into diving, because you said gymnastics, that was your thing. You said preschool or daycare, you had the energy of a lot of kids, probably several kids, and you needed an outlet. So you got into gymnastics. It sounds like you competed in it big time, like pretty, high end gymnastics, doing, what gymnasts do. I mean, I've had a couple gymnasts on the show, one a college gymnast, one who's going to college for gymnastics. So I imagine you were at that elite level.
Yeah, so it's very much a full-time commitment. I was training 20 plus hours a day. You literally you go to school and you go to practice for like 4 or 5 hours, you go to sleep and you do the same thing every day. And again, for me, it was for like 14 years of my life. So I was I got up to level 10. I think the peak, not my peak of gymnastics, but I think my coolest statement would be, I think in 2013, I had the second highest score in the nation on bars and floor for the level I was at. So I was pretty good. I made Westerns both years that I competed level 9, and placed well at those competitions. And then I ended up, I had so many injuries when I was in gymnastics. I broke my foot, I broke my hand, I broke some fingers, I fractured my back twice, and then I eventually tore my ACL doing front layout 1.5, which is called a Rudy. And that kind of just took me out, because when you're a gymnast and you're training that many hours a day, you don't have time to acquire normal person body fat. So you're just all muscle. And when I did have the ACL surgery, I wasn't able to train for a while. So my legs got a little bit bigger, my butt got a little bit bigger. And again, I was like 14 years old. So that's the time when you're going through puberty. But once I got back to training, I was eating the same as I was before, but I was just never able to get to the body fat percentage that I was before my surgery. And gymnastics, there's not a specific weight you should be, but the lighter you are, the less pressure it is on your joints, the less you're going to get injured. And I just was never able to get back to where I had been. Which kind of, I don't know how many gymnasts relate to this, but my coach, even though in the most loving way possible, she gave me a number that I should be aiming for, and that kind of turned into an eating disorder. So that's, when my coaches and my parents kind of made me quit, because naturally I'm a very dense person. I'm not fat by any means. I'm a very active, healthy human. But it was just, I don't think my body was made to last that many years in gymnastics.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot to take in there. When that first happened, though, when you first got injured and you realized and your coaches, your parents are saying, hey, you have to quit, what was kind of your mentality? Were you upset? What was kind of going through your mind?
I was heartbroken because it wasn't my choice. They didn't give me a choice. They told me, we love you, we know you love this sport, but this is not healthy for you. In gymnastics, the way it works is there's no reason you're training level 10 if you don't plan on going and spending another 4 years in college. Again, it just financially, from the parents' perspective, gymnastics is a very expensive sport. It could be like $500 a month to have your kid in gymnastics, plus the travel meets and the leotards and the routines. Like it's an expensive sport, and the time commitment. So they knew, again, even though I was training level 10, in that moment, they knew my body would not last 4 more. Well, at that point, I was a junior when they made me quit. So I'd have to do my junior year, senior year, plus another 4 years in college. And realistically, they just knew that wasn't going to end up well for my body. Again, considering that I'd had so many stress injuries with the back, the knees, my hips, they
Your
knew.
foot. Yeah, everything. Yeah. Wow. So you were devastated. You were heartbroken. Yeah. But I know you had that goal, though. You had that goal that, hey, I want to compete at the college level and something. How did it get to, because I think you said you did some other things before it kind of even got to diving. Can you kind of tell me that story?
Yeah, so that one's kind of funny. Like I said, they made me quit, I want to say like October of my junior year of high school. So I took that winter to kind of just work out on my own, but I didn't jump into any organized sports right away. Like I said, very heartbroken, really, really sad about it. I started coaching at my gym just because it was a really, like when you're a gymnast, you don't have many friends outside of gymnastics because your entire life is spent in the gym with your teammates. So I still went back and coached, but it wasn't the same. So eventually I kind of stopped coaching there. And, I had tried acro and tumbling. So a very normal transition now is, gymnasts or competitive cheerleaders. With acro and tumbling, it's becoming a bigger sport. I think it might be NCAA recognized, so you can get scholarship. I think some of the bigger schools, I think University of Hawaii, Azusa Pacific has a good program, Oregon University has a good program, and Baylor has a good program. Those are some of the West Coast schools that are very competitive. And I had some teammates that had kind of done that transition, so I had tried it out, but even that, because so acro and tumbling, you tumble on a dead mat, so there's no springs underneath. You're on like a basketball court with a hard mat on the top. So trying to transition into that, it still wasn't the best for my body. So I tried. I kind of knew that it wasn't going to work out. Another transition from gymnastics to other sports is pole vaulting. Again, I had some teammates that had done that, so I joined the track team in my junior year, tried pole vaulting. I actually liked it, but I just wasn't, I don't think I could have been good enough to compete at a college level. But during that time, I'm on the track team, and because I missed gymnastics, over the weekends I would still run to my high school and tumble on the track. So the track is near the pool deck, and I guess the water polo coach would see me on the weekends tumbling. And one day I was at school. He was a math professor, so he had found me somewhere on campus, and he asked if I was the girl that would go and tumble on the weekends on the football field. And I said, yeah. He goes, we have a diving team you should try out. And at the time I had told him, oh, like, I'm okay. I'm on the track team right now. I'm pole vaulting. I don't think I really have the time for it. So he was like, okay, but just keep it in mind. And no one ever cares about diving. Like, diving's one of those sports where no one really knows about it. No one cares. At the college level, we're like probably the least funded sport. Trainers don't really care about you. Like, no one cares about diving. I'd never heard of it. I didn't know our school had a team. The team doesn't even practice on campus because the campus doesn't have diving boards. So I hadn't considered it. But one day there was an announcement on the speakers at school. Oh, Sierra College is hosting the Granite Bay High School's dive tryouts today. Anyone's welcome to join. And I had a sports bra and some Nike Pro shorts in my backpack, and I figured, what the heck, I guess I'll just go and try it out. So I went, again, in a sports bra and Nike shorts.
And you didn't have a swimsuit. You just...
and I kind of fell in love with diving. So that season, I ended up doing pole vault and diving. So I'd be... Like I said, I have a lot of energy, so my days consisted of waking up, I think, around 4:30 a.m. I'd go to the gym, work out. I'd go to school. I'd then go to track practice, and then after I'd go to dive practice.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm a busy kid.
Yeah, definitely.
And when I first started diving, I wasn't necessarily that good either. I'd say I would not consider myself a good diver until like midway into my time at Cal Poly. So in high school, again, really enjoyed it. I was okay. I had the gymnastics background, but the transition is difficult because in gymnastics, you don't flip to your head. So there's a very large learning curve when you're going from gymnastics to diving. But I would go to the school competitions, and I could tell that all the kids that were at that next level, they were all on a club team. And so after that junior season, I kind of looked around at what clubs were in my area. So I ended up going to Dos Rios, Dos Rios, which is in Folsom up north, again, kind of north of Sacramento. And the summer of my junior year, I spent training with that club. And I got my first offer from a college in August of starting my senior year of high school. So like 7 months after that tryout, I had my first college offer, which was...
See, now that's impressive, because it's funny. You said, yeah, I don't think I was really that good until halfway through Cal Poly. Well, to get into places like Cal Poly, you have to be somewhat good. I mean, they're not just going to take whoever.
Yeah, the first college that I ended up at was Azusa Pacific University. They're a Division II school. And when I was at that club, again, I didn't think I was good enough to actually go to college for diving. But one of the moms of my teammates had approached me, and she was like, hey, you should consider diving in college. Diving is one of those things where they will recruit on potential. So you can be an ex-gymnast who just started diving, but if a college diving coach knows you were level 9, level 10 gymnast, like, they will recruit on potential. So diving is one of those sports where you can get good really quickly if you have the right athletic background.
Interesting. So. Yeah, this is a whole new thing. You mentioned everyone kind of forgets about diving. No one knows what's going on with diving. You said that a few times. I'm in that boat. Like, I don't really know much about diving at all. When does diving happen? Is it a springtime sport? Because like, I know, football's fall, basketball's kind of winter. Is diving spring when it's like getting warmer? Is that the deal?
I think we're actually the sport with the longest season. So at Cal Poly, or even at Azusa Pacific, I'm going to talk about my time at Cal Poly. So we started preseason 2 weeks before school started. So I want to say like September 1st or around there, we started preseason. I was trying to look at my calendar. I forgot. February 14th was the last day of our conference competition, but I qualified to zones. So zones went all the way March 13th, I want to say.
Wow. Okay.
So
that is a long season. So September all the way through March.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a lot. And I understand college athletics. I mean, it's almost like a year-round thing for these college athletes. Mm-hmm. And then really in any sport, they're training all year long. You're training all year long. Wow. Okay. So you had that whole thing going. Again, I don't know anything about it. So if you don't mind, I want some of the technical side of it, just so I understand.
Yeah.
How do the competitions work? What, I guess there's, like in gymnastics, I know you got vault and you've got bars and you got beam. What is it with what's diving?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
With diving, you have different events. There is 1 meter. 1 meter is an event, 3 meter, and platform. And depending on what school you go to, you might not compete platform. So for me in high school, like I never trained it because I didn't have, the closest one was 2.5 hours away. Yeah, there's just not a lot of platform facilities around. So again, you'll have athletes that will get recruited to schools that don't have platform, and then you'll have schools that do compete platform. Sometimes you'll be a springboard athlete and go to a school that has platform, and you have to learn platform for the first time. So like Cal Poly, we've had a few coach changes throughout the last 2 years. And the coach that I had my first year at Cal Poly did not have us compete platform. My coach this year did have us compete platform. So I had to learn how to do platform this year as a 5th year. But yeah, so there's 1 meter, 3 meter, and platform. You compete 6 dives on each event. Except on platform, if you're a female, you only have to compete 5 dives. If you're a male, you compete 6. And then the way it works, I turned my phone off. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Yep.
So the way it works is you compete 6 dives on each event. There are 5 categories of dives. So you have to hit each of those 5 categories, and then you repeat one of the category, like your best category. You don't do the same dive, but you do 2 different dives in that category. So it goes front, back, inward, reverse, and twister.
Front, back, inward, reverse, twister.
Yes. And then you go and do one more of each. So let's say you're really good at fronts. So you might do a front 2.5, and then your double up dive might be like a front 3.5.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And then the way the competitions work is you show up, you have like X amount of warm up time, and then when you compete, everyone goes through 6 rounds for each of the 6 dives. So let's say there's like 20 divers at that competition. Each diver will go through and do their first dive, and then you'll start the second round. Each diver will do their second dive. And so at smaller competitions, it's not really an issue. You stay warm because you're going through quickly. Let's say dual meets where maybe it's Cal Poly versus UC Davis. There might be, 15 girls total. So it goes through quickly. But let's say we're at a competition like Zones, which is the meet before NCAAs or nationals for diving. That, which I had qualified to, I think there are around 50 girls. So in that case, that's a really, like, it could take 30 minutes around,
That's a lot of time.
So those competitions become a lot more tiring, because it might take like 3 hours to get through one of the boards.
Wow.
Yeah. And then again, because I had to learn how to do platform this year, but I've never trained it before. This year I learned that with platform, there's a 5 meter, a 7 meter, and a 10 meter. I always thought that each of the different heights were a different event, but that's not the case. So with platform, you have to do your six dives if you're a guy, 5 dives if you're a girl. But you can choose which height you dive off of. So
interesting.
In that case, let's say I'm I'm doing a front 2.5 pike. I can choose which meter I go off of, but the higher you go, the lower the degree of difficulty is. Which was interesting for me because going higher is scarier, but
right.
but you have more time to complete.
More time to get through the motions or whatever you got to do, the
Yeah.
flips or whatever.
And
Okay.
so it
Yeah.
really increases your score if you go from a lower meter.
Yeah, because I would have thought like you. I would have thought, hey, I'm going higher here. This is more scary for me. It's got to be worth more points, right? But it's not. That's very interesting.
And then the way the scoring goes is, so you have a panel of judges. At lower stake meets, you might have as little as 3 judges. At higher stake meets, you might go up to 7 judges, and you only count 3 scores. So three judge panel, all 3 scores will count. A 5 judge panel, they'll knock off the highest score and the lowest score. 7 judge panel, again, 2 off of each end. And the way it works is they multiply, and then each dive has a degree of difficulty. So as your dives become more difficult, there's a higher degree of difficulty number associated with that dive, and you multiply the average of the judges' scores with you add up the 3 judges' scores and then you multiply it by the degree of difficulty. And that's how you come up with your final score for that dive. And like I said, you compete 6 dives, then you add up the scores from all 6 of those dives, and then that's your final score.
Do you have a particular, like, what's your best one? What's your favorite one, maybe?
I'd say my favorite one from this year, because like I said, I never considered myself a good diver, but this year I did get really good. We got a new coach, and she was really awesome. Her name's Laurel, so if Laurel sees this, I love you, Laurel. But so I'd say my favorite was the inwards. So front dive, again, you're just flipping forward. The back dive, you're doing a backflip. Inward is where you're standing on the edge of the board, facing the length of the board, and you're jumping.
Okay.
You're jumping backward, but you're flipping forward.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, let me see if I can demonstrate. Okay, so
all right.
Let's say this is the pool and this is the board. So inward, you're jumping backward, but you're flipping forward, and then you go this way. And then reverse would be you're jumping forward, but you're flipping backward.
Interesting. It's sorry for anybody who's just listening. Just imagine in your minds what it's looking like. I love that though, and it's interesting because those ones. I mean, it feels like there'd be a little bit of danger in that because you're kind of doing reverse of like you're facing the board, jumping out away, but spinning towards it. Did you ever have any, close calls or anything like that?
Yeah. So I hit the board one time. So like I said, a million injuries in gymnastics. However, I got pretty lucky with diving. I've only had 1 real injury, and I did hit my head on the board, but this was kind of interesting because I hit it doing a back double to my feet, so a a back jump with 2 flips, and somehow my head went under the board, and as I was going down, the board was going down, and it hit my head on the underside of the board. So I ended up having to get 5 staples in my head, and I think I got a concussion.
Well, that almost defies logic, really. Like if you think about it on the underside, interesting. But the board was moving, so
yeah. But I'd say with diving, honestly, a common injury is a concussion, but not even from the board, from hitting the water.
Wow. Okay, from hitting the water.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Especially, I would think the really high platform divers. That's got to be pretty dangerous.
Yeah. So my freshman year, when I was at Azusa, there's a 5-person team. 2 of my teammates got concussions that year from, again, hitting their head on the water too hard off of 3 meter. And then this year, one of my teammates also got a concussion going off of 3 meter.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty wild to think about.
And he had, his nose was bleeding. He tried, coming back to practice after he got cleared from his concussion protocol, and he would still get, nosebleeds all the time. It took a really long time for him to stop, getting bloody noses during practice from that original concussion.
Yeah. Do you remember your first competition as a diver in high school?
In high school, I don't. I don't.
What about what was the first competition you remember for diving?
I honestly, because I had taken gymnastics so seriously, and I felt like I didn't have the choice of quitting. I ended up my whole diving career, I've never been 2 feet into the sport. I've always been like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because I still have that kind of feeling that like it could be taken away from me anytime. So like I said, I was invested into diving, but I want to say that I gave it like 90%, but never 100%. And again, because I had loved gymnastics so much and it got taken away from me, I was just always a little bit scared that, somehow diving would be taken away from me. But the first competition I genuinely remember was maybe starting at Azusa.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So not even until you got to the college level, then you kind of started remembering.
Yeah. And
any particular competition that you have, anything that was memorable, or any kind of stories that you have, or experiences?
Yeah. I'd say this year, because I knew it was going to be my only year competing at Cal Poly and also my last year of diving, my whole goal was to, do the best I could in diving, but also have as much fun as possible, just because last year, since I was not eligible to compete, I didn't get to go on any of the travel meets. And so, honestly, I had so much fun this year with my team. We went to Arizona a few times. We had a training trip in the winter to Mission Viejo. We did a few overnight trips, which I'd never gotten to experience. But I think my most memorable meet was probably our conference competition. We all traveled to Mission Viejo. And I think that was the last meet that I would compete in where the whole team was there, because it was the last meet of the season for people that didn't qualify to zones. So three of our athletes, me and two others on our team, qualified to zones. So my last competition was the three of us, but it was a lot of fun. Like I said, we have a really great team at Cal Poly. We might not be the best divers ever, but I want to say like we really are a family, and it is just we have the most fun together. So
You had a tight knit group that just bonded really well.
yeah.
I think I saw some pictures on Instagram. I think you took a trip to NAU.
Yeah.
And that looked like a lot of fun. It seems like you guys were a really good, tight group. That's fun that you have those kind of memories. And I'm sure you've probably made friends for life now having this.
Yeah. And like I said, the thought of kind of leaving this year and like moving out of San Luis Obispo, I don't know. I just genuinely don't think I've ever been this close with a group of people. So I'm really happy that I get to stay around, because like with my teammates, I'd say there's not a week where we don't do something team related together. So like on Sunday mornings, I go to church with one of my teammates, and then we do yoga after, and another one of my teammates, we go surfing every Tuesday, and another one of my teammates will like cook together and go to the movies. So I'm happy that I kind of get to stay around that environment. Also, we just do a lot of fun stuff together. Like there's a lot of hiking spots around San Luis Obispo, so we'll all go hiking and like climb trees. We're planning to go like skydiving. We took a snowboarding trip to China Peak this winter season. We're always doing stuff together, which is fun because I'm a very adventurous person, and I don't know too many people that can kind of keep up with me. So it's fun to kind of bring them along on some of my adventures.
Awesome. And this is an adventure podcast. I like to hear about adventures. I saw one thing too that you posted on Instagram about skydiving.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was kind of just a spur of the moment decision. Like, can you tell that story real quick? Because I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, actually, okay, so that one's kind of funny. Like I said, during COVID, I was living with my boyfriend and his family. But they live in a really small town in Central California, and there was just, like I said, I had moved there because I needed somewhere quiet to study and get my schoolwork done, because I have a daycare run out of my house back home. But it just wasn't what I was used to. And like I said, I'm the type of person that kind of like needs a little bit of adrenaline in their life. So I was just feeling a little bit stuck living there. I didn't know anyone. In random tiny town, surrounded by agriculture fields. And so I was on TikTok one night at maybe like 11 p.m. and I was scrolling and I saw someone skydiving and I was like, I'm going to do that. And I think within 30 minutes of me seeing the TikTok, I had booked a ticket off of Groupon. I got it for like $200 up in Monterey. So I woke up that morning, I told my boyfriend, I'm going skydiving. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, I'm going. I don't know. I just need to go do something that's different. Like I said, I think I was just craving a bit of adrenaline. And so I had called my mom. I was like, Mom, I'm going skydiving. I will buy your ticket if you come with me, but I'm going regardless. So she was like, okay, I'll go. The next day I call her, so what date are you free? And she goes, I didn't know that you were actually serious about this. I'm like, no, I'm going skydiving. I bought my ticket. Are you coming or not? And so she goes, give me a day. I need to think about it. And yeah, she was like, fine, I'll go. So it was kind of cool because my mom and I went skydiving together.
Very cool.
COVID, and that was one of like the most fun things I'd ever done. It's so surreal that you can't even be scared of it because you don't even understand what's happening. Like in no real like world scenario are you standing on the outside of a plane about to jump out. It's like I said, it's so surreal that I don't think I could even comprehend it. And by the time that I had jumped out, again, assuming that you saw those photos, like I was just smiling the entire time.
Yeah. I've never been skydiving. That to me, that's one of the highlights. When I think of being adventurous, that's something that comes to mind right off the bat, skydiving, just because it's such an adrenaline rush. And again, I haven't done it. I don't know. I'm scared thinking about it. So the fact that you got on that plane, you stood up on it, wow, that's impressive. Another thing I was really impressed by you was something that you did with Cal Poly with your dive team, is you kind of led I think it was the Bible study group.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit. I think that's cool that you were able to mix your faith and with the sport that you enjoyed doing. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up Christian, very strong in my faith. I'm not too outspoken. So when the leader last year asked me to take over, I was a little surprised, again, because I was a transfer. So I had just been there for, barely a year. It's a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I just felt like it was something good to be a part of. And, with being on the swim and dive team, there's lots of fun to be had. But I think that, that one time of the week where we all get together and have that Bible study and have dinner together and talk about, the Bible and Jesus and what life lessons are to be learned. It's such a great time of the week to just kind of sit back and remember what's important. So yeah, this year I led it with one of my teammates, Madrina, and it was like I said, one of the best experiences of this year because we really wanted to make it feel like a family. And so the previous year, the leader, she would just host it on campus. So once a week we'd get together, maybe like a classroom. She'd have some snacks, we'd meet. But again, I really wanted to make it feel like the people that were there were my priority. So Madrina she lives in one of the swim houses. So every Sunday at 5:30, we'd always have dinner. So I'd go to Costco, pick up 2 Costco pizzas. I'd bring dessert, and we'd do it in their garage. And we started with a group around maybe like 6 people, but towards the end we had a consistent group of around like 8 to 10 people. Our biggest attended Bible study was around 13 or 14 of us, it may have even been 15. Like our team is around 60 people, so we had almost 25% of the team at our Bible study, which I thought was really cool.
That's awesome. And what kind of role does faith play for you just in life in general, as well as in diving?
Yeah. So for me, I've always been a big dreamer. So growing up, I just feel like I'm made for something bigger than what this life has to offer. Like, sure, I'm a good student, I'm a good athlete. I love my family, but there's so much like bad in the world that I just feel like my faith gives me something to look forward to, and it reminds me that there is a reason to put a smile on and be nice to people and go about, and every day I kind of think, okay, like what positive impact can I make? During the Bible study, I reminded everyone almost every week, like, okay, we're here, we have the opportunity to be Division I student athletes. This is an amazing experience, but like what can we do with this opportunity to make a positive impact on our campus? And so with this Bible study that I was leading, it's actually part of a bigger organization called Athletes InterVarsity. And so this organization, their mission is every team, every athlete. So almost every team or Division I team at Cal Poly has, they've contacted someone on the team that is, of faith. And almost every team has someone leading a Bible study. And so like I might be a mentor to the people that attend my Bible study on the swim and dive team. All of the leaders on all of the other teams, we get together every week and we get mentored by someone that leads the Athletes InterVarsity organization, which I think is really cool.
That's great. I love that. And I like the perspective you have on that things are just kind of ugly out in the world. And it's nice to be able to have that faith that, hey, we're more than this. We're more than just the ugliness that's out there. We can rise above that. That helped me. And thank you for sharing that, because that kind of put it in a good perspective for me as well. So I appreciate you sharing that and your thoughts on faith. I think it's important. I know another thing that you kind of talk about too, that I've seen on your Instagram, was a lot to do with kind of like with body image, things like that.
Yeah.
What's behind that for you?
Yeah. And I want to start off with like this whole Instagram thing. Like, I have a few thousand followers right now. It never started as I want to be an influencer. I want to seem cool. I want to do this and that. It was mainly just I started posting my diving videos and those started doing really well. And I realized that I did have a lot of people viewing my page, and I really want to be able to put out a positive message on there. And so with the body image thing, like I said, growing up, starting after I tore my ACL, I went through a really hard time. And, because we're on this podcast and I have a small platform, I think it's good to touch on these kind of things, because sometimes people kind of suffer in silence and you don't realize that there's so many other people struggling with what you're struggling with. So the reality was, when I was trying to lose weight in gymnastics so I could get to a point where, it was physically healthier for me to be tumbling. I wasn't at an unhealthy weight for an average person. It was more just for gymnastics. It was healthier for me to be lighter, but physically, I don't think I could have achieved that. And so I was binge eating, and then I was throwing up afterwards. And once you get into that cycle, it's really, like I said, it's really unhealthy, and you don't want to tell people about it because that's not something you want to tell people. And so for about a year and a half, I struggled with that. And, once that all started, it kind of turned into a big body image thing, because I'd look in the mirror and I definitely had body dysmorphia. And yeah, it was a really hard time because you don't think that you can get better. And, something else I post about is like acne. And so, yeah, during this time, I just had the lowest self-esteem. And growing up, my mom tells me like, "Oh, you're so beautiful." Like, people, like, I would get attention for how I looked, but it didn't matter what anyone else said because I didn't like myself. And so with, again, the small following that I have, I really just want to be able to put out the message of like, because when I was, again, eating or binge eating and then throwing up, I'm probably the same weight I was then as I am now, and I eat so much. That's the thing. Like, you can and I probably looked good at that time. But I'm so healthy right now. Like at that time, I was depressed, I was sad, I was tired, I had no energy. I wouldn't really leave my room. That's not a life you want to live just to be skinny. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it does not make any sense for girls to go on Instagram and see all these skinny people with abs, with tiny stomachs, and be like, oh, I want to look like them, I'm just gonna not eat. Don't do that. Like, you can look at my Instagram, like, I'm a fit, happy athlete, I'm successful, I am doing well in school, I set two, not set two school records, but I have the second highest record on the 1 meter and the 3 meter at Cal Poly. I eat a lot of food. I eat food, I'm happy, I get my sleep, and I'm fit, like, I physically like what I look like. And it doesn't make sense to not eat because that's not helping anyone. So I really do, again, whatever this social media thing turns into, I just want to use it for good so that people know that, you can struggle with food, and it's such a real thing. Like, I did have to get therapy for it. But you also, like, you can be skinny, you can be fit, you can be athletic, and you can eat a lot and have a burger and ice cream. It's just learning what your body needs and how to feel like you have control over your food. Because that's the thing. At the time, I felt so out of control with my life. Again, my knee surgery led to me feeling like I didn't have control over my sports. I got sad. I just didn't feel like I was in control. Especially my parents are very into being healthy and fitness, and so I didn't feel comfortable. Like, they would make comments about what I would eat in the most loving way possible, but it wasn't healthy for what I was dealing with. So let's say I wanted to eat a slice of cake and it was a little bit bigger than what they would recommend. My parents might make a comment of like, oh, that's a really big piece of cake. You can't keep eating like that when you're older or else you're going to blow up. So again, out of a place of love, because they love me and I know they love me, but that was not beneficial to growing up as a female and that type of thing. So again, felt very out of control back then. Now I wake up and it's, again, refreshing that I'm making good, healthy decisions and I like what I look like. And I feel when I'm hungry, I eat. I know, again, being an athlete and being in a Division I program, we have lots of resources. So they train us on nutrition. They tell us about how carbs affect your body, how fats affect your body, how all of like what you eat and your sleep, how it processes through your system and how it affects you. And so now that I'm more educated on nutrition and how it works, again, I feel a lot more in control and I'm able to make good decisions for my body. So.
Good for you. That's awesome. And I love the message that you have that, hey, it's okay. And you can overcome that. And you did. And I like the fact that you said you got therapy for it. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think sometimes we're kind of a little scared, like, oh, therapy is a scary thing. It's helpful. If it helps, do it. Yeah. So I want to know, we've been talking for quite a while. What does the future hold for Brianna? What do you think?
I mean, like I said, sadly, my diving career is over because I'm no longer a student. But with the social media, it kind of gives me it encourages me to go out and do more things, not because like, oh, I want to go film, but it just, like I said, I've been through hard times with my knee surgery, my hip surgery, whatever I went through with food and body image. Like, I've been a shell of who I am right now. And so I'm just really excited that I'm graduating. I have a good paying job. I'm in a city I like with people that I like. And I just want to enjoy life as much as possible. I want to go adventure. Again, growing up, I was a little bit sheltered. So I didn't know that if I wake up and I just want to be like, oh, I'm going to go on a hike today, or I'm going to go camping with friends. Like, I can just decide to do that when I have free time. So I just want to travel and explore as much as I can. And, with social media, if I record and document what I'm doing and there are more opportunities that present themselves, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I just want to use social media to, one, put out a positive message, but two, there are so many opportunities within social media and connecting me with different groups of people and brands and organizations. I'd love to just take advantage of what I can. So who knows, if someone wants to pay me to travel somewhere to shoot a campaign or go do something, like, I just want to take advantage of being 22 in a healthy body with a good spirit and different things I can experience.
I love it. Brianna, thank you so much for coming on Journey with Jake.
Of course.
Thank you so much to my guest, Brianna Medvecki, for coming on the show. I really appreciate her vulnerability with me and talking about her struggles with binge eating and body image. I think that was a really important aspect of this episode, and so I'm grateful for her for talking to me about that. She also talked about her social media, so I want to invite everyone to follow Brianna on Instagram. It's at Bri_Vecki. That's at BRI_Vecki, Vecki. She is a fun follow and is really positive, which makes it all the more fun. Please give me a follow as well on Instagram at Journey with Jake Podcast. This is a great way to see some clips from the show and also the place where I show off a little of my personality, including some daily prompts or questions that I like to answer as a way for everyone to get to know me a little better. Thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in and listening to Journey with Jake each and every week. Next week, we have David Allen Tracy, who is a personal brand coach, but he is much more than that. We are going to dive into his adventures living overseas and overcoming cancer twice. You don't want to miss next week's show. Just remember, it's not always about the destination as it is about the journey. Take care, everybody.